Hey, thanks for stopping by the Watercolor Methods YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll find out when we've got something new posted for you to watch. And maybe check out our website, watercolormethods.com, where we've got over 200 full-length, in-depth watercolor lessons and tutorials that you might like. In the meantime, let's take a look at this lesson.
Let's paint this quiet winter scene together. Click the link down below to download the drawing layout, which will help you get it onto your paper. Easy to draw, easy to lay out, and there it is. We start in the sky with a light mix of cadmium red and raw sienna together to get this nice warm background sky. The background snow and tree area is a light mixture of cobalt blue and burnt sienna. You can mix that in, again, loose and wet, cover most of the paper with it, and that'll get you started. This area is done with a very thick mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna together. It gives you a nice dark gray, and the thick color allows you to put in the marks and leave fairly distinct but soft edges. I'm using a 1-inch flat brush for this part of the painting. The tree in the right foreground is a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Again, pretty thick mixture so that you can get nice, distinct but soft edges. I used the same color on the left for the larger trees and a little bit of those smaller trees in the background and on the left. And again, this is a 1/2-inch flat with long bristles that really facilitates this work. Use a thick mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna together to get this very dark color. These colors should be fluid, but also very, very thick color to get that nice dark that you need for that area. I'm using a 1-inch flat again for this part, but mostly on the corner of the brush rather than the whole end and whole tip. Here we're going to lift out some reflections, and we do that by using a dry brush or a brush that's just barely damp and lifting out of that wet area that we just put in with the dark color for the dark surfaces of the water. I'm using my 1/4-inch, my 1/2-inch flat with long bristles to help with this. I'm using my 1/2-inch flat with the long bristles to lift that color, and again, keep blotting as you need to keep this work going. For the dark trees in the background, this is our main focal area, and we want these trees really dark. So use a thick mixture again of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, just like we did for the surface of the water. I started with my 1/4-inch flat, but now I've switched over to my rigger, the thin brush with the long bristles, which is great for doing trees and branches on trees, and even other little marks like weeds and so forth. Now let's add some texture to the background with the corner of that 1/2 inch long bristled flat. And again, just the corner to get these random marks, rough edged work that creates that little bit of texture in the background. I'm using the same brush and the same technique to add a little bit more darker value to the surface of the water in amongst the ice and snowbanks, and a little bit of darker edges along those snowbanks as well. Again, just a little bit of textural to enhance the scene. Some lighter color, cobalt blue and burnt sienna mixed together, just to get a little bit more texture on this snowbank in the foreground, just like we did in the background a little earlier. Same brush, same technique. A little of the darker color again now to get some texture along the edge of the bank, between the bank and the little ice, patches of ice that sit near the bank on the edge of the stream. Darker color, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and our same brush, 1/2 inch flat. Now more of our thin trees using our rigger, that thin, long bristled brush, to get thinner trees and branches on some of the trees that are already there. Now weeds along the bank. This time we're using a mixture of cobalt blue and cadmium red together, which gives sort of a dusky violet color and is really useful for a different color of a gray in a winter landscape. Use that same mixture, but with slightly more red in it to get those brighter reddish brown weeds back near our focal point. You can darken the bank and the ice next to the bank with a little bit of a mixture of cobalt blue and burnt sienna, very light and very fluid. Add texture to those two light trees with some of that same dark mixture that we've used throughout the painting. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixed together. Really fluid, but also very thick. The ripples and some of the dark reflections on the water are used, again, with that same dark mixture, still using the 1/2" long bristled flat and that dark mixture of color to do that work. Here we'll create some lighter reflections for the two trees on the right by painting darker colors around those areas that need to be reflected in the water. Same dark mixture of color, Ultramarine and Burnt Sienna, and we're still using our 1/2" long bristled flat. That same dark color will give us some dark texture and some shade on those two trees on the right-hand side of our painting. We'll really finish up the painting and fill it out with a little bit more weed and texture along the bank, near the trees, and especially near that focal point, that group of dark trees
Area of
back
paint.
in the middle ground.
Again, more weeds.
Use the side of your rigger to get some patchy looking weeds and groups of weeds and short weeds together. It's a great way to add really subtle texture to any landscape, but especially the winter landscape. And there's our finished painting. A nice, quiet winter scene, simple color scheme, easy to paint, easy to use techniques, and it comes out with a really nice effect.